All right, guys. So, are there questions on problems 1 through 3 or one of those that y'all want to look at? So 1 through 3, underline the hypothesis and circle the conclusion. If,
Wait, we don't circle that.
because if and then are not a part of the hypothesis or conclusion. So for 2, I am hungry. In the conclusion, I'll find something to eat.
We get it wrong, we kick you.
I'm not going to care too much about the if and then, but I would make sure that you underline the correct part and circle the correct part. Because if you do have it flipped, that you circled the or underlined the wrong part, I will count off. So it would be good to read the instructions, make sure that you do it correct. Any other questions on 1, 2, or 3? So questions 4 through 6, write it in if-then form. A right angle is 90 degrees. So what? If an angle is a right angle, then its measure is 90 degrees. Because as we learned on some of these here, we might have to throw a few more words in to make the sentence make sense. Because a right angle's measure is 90 degrees, so if an angle is a right angle, then its measure is 90 degrees. Questions on number 4? Questions about 5 or 6 in writing if-then form? We good with 5 and 6? Any questions on problems 5 or 6? Okay. 7 through 9, write a biconditional statement. Which one of these do we want to look at? 7, 8, or 9? If two angles are congruent, then they have equal measures. So to write as a biconditional statement, we'll say that 2 angles are congruent. Then we'd put what? If and only if. IFF is shorthand for if and only if. Yeah. Have equal measures. 2 angles are congruent if and only if they have equal measures. Any other questions on 7, 8, or 9? We're good with 7, 8, 9? And again, with these here, 7, 8, 9, we're writing if and only if. So if and then need to be gone. I will count off if you, again, so if you'd start off if 2 angles are congruent, if and only if they have equal measures, I'm going to count off for the if at the start. Because again, the if then starting off with if, having then in the middle are gone. I do not remember off the top of my head. Questions on 10 or 11? Which one do we want to look at? So we could look at 10. So our conditional statement, if you do your math homework, then we'll pass the test. So true and false, I'm not going to ask for on the test. I'm just going to ask you to write the 4 statements. Now the converse is we flip it. So if you will pass the test, as long as you don't change the structure or the kind of overall meaning of the sentence, you can reword it so it makes more sense. Then you did your homework. You did your math homework. Yeah, because then you will, so if you will pass the test, then you, well, then you, yeah, yeah. Then you did your math homework. Because then you do your math homework. Yeah, because if you want to rewrite it so that it grammatically sounds better, that's fine. But I'm not counting off on grammar. We're really just rewriting these. Now the inverse, if you didn't your math homework, then you didn't pass the test. Right, what? Write the conditional statement, converse, inverse, and the contrapositive. It asks for all four. And the contrapositive, if you didn't pass the test, then you didn't do your homework, or didn't do your math homework. Again, I'm not going to be too picky on verb tense. As long as you're writing the sentences, that's fine. Yep. Converse, so conditional, converse, inverse, contrapositive. Now I did, if you notice, in each one of those statements, I did give you the version of it. P implies Q, or Q implies P, and so on and so forth. Because the conditional statement P implies Q, converse Q implies P, inverse not P implies not Q, and contrapositive not Q implies not P. I did write those in right after each one just as a reminder what we're doing. Questions on these two here? Yes. Yep. Any other questions on 10 or 11? 12 through 14, determine if inductive or deductive reasoning. So if we look at this one here, when I roll a dice 10 times, it comes up as an even number 5 times. There's a 50% chance. So there's a 50% chance of rolling an even number. Is this inductive or deductive? Yes. Inductive, we're talking about a pattern. Inductive is pattern, deductive is facts. So 12 would be inductive. 13, I am 5,200 feet away from my house. Since 5,250 feet is equal to 1 mile, I am 1 mile away from home. This would be deductive because it's a fact. Deduct. And hopefully you'll be able to spell inductive and deductive reasoning correct on the test. I mean, it's right there in the... I mean, they are included in the instructions. Inductive is... So what is inductive, guys? patterns. Deductive is facts. I was just saying, you should be able to spell it right. It's given it to you in the instructions. Any other questions on 12 through 14? 15 through 18, detachment or syllogism? Syllogism. Now, again, the law of detachment, if the hypothesis is true, then the conclusion is also true. If it's going to be detachment, they're going to give us a conditional statement and then something else with it. So if we look at 16, if I go to work, then I will get paid. That's a conditional statement, if then. If Tom goes to work, well, that makes the hypothesis of this statement true, yes? So the conclusion must also be true. So the conclusion is I will get paid. So what can we say? Tom will get paid. So if it's detachment, they're going to give us a if-then statement and then a statement to follow. For the law of syllogism, they're going to give us two statements, two if-then statements, and the conclusion of one is going to match the hypothesis of the other. So for this one here, if x is less than negative 2, then the absolute value of x is greater than 2. If the absolute value of x is greater than 2, then x is greater than 2.
So your syllogism will always have an if-then.
Yep.
And detachment will only have one if-then.
Mm-hmm. Now here we notice that the absolute value of x is greater than 2 matches. So we're going to take the two other statements. Now we always start with the one that has if. So if x is less than negative 2, then x is greater than 2. This one doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it still works because we're mainly just following this rule. Questions on 15 or 16? Questions on 17 or 18? Because 17 is going to be that A, B, C, D has all right angles and four congruent sides. Because the hypothesis is that a figure is a square. Since that's true, the conclusion must also be true that A, B, C, D has four right angles and four congruent sides. With 18, if A equals 6, then 3A equals 18. If 1/2 A equals 3, then A equals 6. So we can say if 1/2 A is equal to 3, then so we're merging the if and then. Yes. So if a figure is a square, what did we just say about A, B, C, D? If the hypothesis is true, then the conclusion must. So what's the conclusion of our first statement? So A, B, C, D has four, are all right angles. And four congruent sides. Yes. Did you do it?
I did do it, but it's fine.
Okay.
I'm not ready for papers, so.
Questions on any of this here? All right, let's look at number 19. All right, guys, let's look at number 19. Guys, focus in. So these here, guys, These here, the ones for math, the proofs for math will be completely blank on the test. For the ones that like this here are going to be completely blank. I will give you the start here, so this one here, but then I'm going to leave the rest of it blank so that y'all can solve it the way that you want, not restricting you on a certain method or a certain set of steps.
Okay, so you're only leaving us the first one?
Yep. But again, what would we do first?
You take the 3 and times it by 4, and then you take 3 times it by 4. And then you add 21 to both sides, or 15, or minus, subtract.
Guys, let's focus up here. Now, again, at this point, so the first thing we did was distribute. We distributed the 4, or the 3 and the 5 across, yes? Now, what could we do next?
Subtract 21, subtract 15.
Right, we could subtract 21, we could subtract 15, we could subtract 15x, we could subtract 12x, yes? But by me filling in some of these steps, you're going to have to pick the correct one. By leaving it blank, by leaving it all blank, any one of those you pick will be correct as long as you put the correct ones on each side. Because we could say that here, so 21, we can subtract 12x from both sides, which will give us 21 is equal to 3x plus 15. So we really don't need that third step there because we subtracted, yes? So subtraction, property of equality. Yeah, no, I added that third step in. I need to take that out. Now, what did they do from here to here? 19.
They subtract 15. They divide it. Now, why would the heck? I was right. No, Taylor didn't belong here.
I was talking about number 5, not number 4.
Go back down.
What? I know, I'm blind, I'm sorry.
90 minutes, yeah, I was on a roll. That's why he cut it out.
But again, so by not filling these in for y'all, it opens you guys up to actually doing them how you want to do them. Questions on 19? So if we look at 20, what goes in the first blank?
The problem up there. And you distribute it.
Distributive property. Now the third one here, with this side filled in, the next thing is the subtraction property of equality. So it's saying we would need to subtract something from both sides. So we could subtract 4x from both sides, which will tell us negative 4 is equal to 3x plus. Next one is subtraction property of.
What if I subtract 11 from both sides?
That's fine.
Okay.
But again, that's also why I'm leaving both sides blank on this so that you can pick which way you do.
So, I feel like whenever you leave a blank, it's kind of easier.
Yeah, for these here, it's easier. Because again, if you wanted to have added 4 here, that's technically a correct way to do it. Right, but because here I put subtraction property already, right, that's why I'm leaving both of them blank. So as long as you match the correct steps to the correct procedures, when you write them out, that's fine. Because then the last thing we would divide, telling us x is equal to negative 5. Any other questions on these here? In 25 minutes.
What?
So 21 and 22, guys, we're going to still need to get through this. So again, with these here, we're just applying the properties. So substitution property, if AB equals 20, then AB plus CD is equal to, because we substitute the property or value in. Symmetric property, if measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 2, then the measure of angle. So again, with these here, we're just applying the properties. Any other, because it is included in the review sheet. Questions on either one of these here? Questions on 23, 24, or 25? Yes. 23. 23 is our addition property of equality. If AB is equal to CD, well, addition property says I can add the same thing to both sides, yes? Then AB plus EF is equal to CD plus.
I don't understand how that would be a substitution.
For 23?
Yeah.
Because addition property of equality says I can add the same thing to both sides and it still be equal. So I added EF to one side, which means I need to add it to the other. Yeah. Questions on 24 or 25? Questions on 24 or 25? Questions on 26, 27, or 28? So 26, 27, and 20. It's at the back. Yes. 26, 27, 28, 29, we're stating the property. So 26 would be what? Because this would be the transitive property of segment congruency. Segment property of, or transitive property of segment congruency. So again, with these here, you need to make sure that you do state the correct one for congruency or equality, and if it's a segment or angle. Yes? No. Congruent and congruency, you can interchange those.
The next one
Mm-hmm.
is a symmetric property of angle congruency.
I believe it's actually reflexive property of
What? I'm gonna go on a
congruence or congruency, but again,
I believe it is.
because all the properties are in the back of this review sheet. So you can look at those. Any other questions on these here? Because we still have a few more to get through.
Yeah, I think it's like left.
Questions on 30 through 33. Questions on 30, 31, or 32. Questions on 30, 31, or 32.
30, 31.
30 what? So if the measure, or if angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 and angle 2 is congruent to angle 3, then angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. So this one here, we're doing almost the same thing, but this time we're talking about congruency, not equality. Any other questions on 30, 31, or 32?
I don't have a question.
Okay. So, guys, do we want to look at 33, 34, or 35?
the last two are symmetric.
Let's do 35.
So guys, let's look at this one here. So 35. Okay. Now again, with guys, with this here, we're going to always start with the given. Now for these proofs, the geometric proofs, you will have stuff given to you. It's not going to be completely blank. Now we always start with the given information. So we're starting off with that angle 1 and 2 are supplementary and 1 and 3 are supplementary. Now for some of these here, we could put it all in one grouping, or we could do multiple of the given. So we could put it as 1, 2, and 3, or here 1 and 2 is the given. Now what are we wanting to prove? 2 is congruent to. So I know that the last line of this here is saying that angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. So, I mean, on any of the geometric proofs, we should always have the first line and the last. Now, so the second line, well, our reasoning is that definition of supplementary angles. Well, supplementary angles add together to be what? So we're saying the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is equal to 180. We can also say that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 3 is equal to 180. Because that's just the definition of supplementary angles. Transitive property of equality. Well, these are both equal to, so we can set them equal to each. Subtraction property. Subtraction property of equality says we can subtract the same thing from both sides. So we're going to subtract angle 1 from both sides, telling us that the measure angle 2 is equal to the measure of angle 3. And then that's it. Any other questions on this one here? We'll come back to 36. I want to look at 37 through 40 first. Now, so all right, guys, focus up here. So 37.
You can cut it in half and get to 60.
So 37 is telling us that angle 1 is 120.
And then angle 3 is 20.
Angle 3 is going to be 120 because vertical angles are congruent. Vertical angles are congruent, which means 2 and 4 are going to be same. Now, 1 and 4 make a straight line, so they add together to be
60.
180. So we can do 180 minus 120, which is,
60.
so the measure of angle 2 and 4 are.
And then the next one would be 61.
So for the next one, we're trying to find the measure of angle 1, measure of angle 2, and the measure of angle 4. Now, since they told us angle 3 is 115, it means the measure of angle 1 is 115. To find the other angles, we can subtract 115 from 180, which gives us, which means 2 and 4 are 65. Questions on these here?
79. Maybe.
So any other questions on 39 or 40? So let's look. So guys, do we want to look at 41 or 42?
Sorry, it feels bad. The watermelon jumpsicle.
So what do we know about vertical angles? They are congruent. So 16y and 18y minus 18 are going to be the same. So we can solve this here by first subtracting 18y from both sides, which will tell us that negative 2y is equal to negative 18. Divide both sides by negative 2, and it tells us that y is 9. We can do the same thing for x. 10x minus 4
I know.
10x minus 4 is equal to 6 times x plus 2. The first thing we can do is distribute the 6. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 2 is 12. Again, we want to get all the variables on the same side, so we can subtract 6x from both sides. 10x minus 6x is going to be 4x. The next thing we can do is add 4, telling us 4x is equal to 16. Divide both sides by 4. It tells us x is equal to 4. Questions on either one of this here? You hang on to these. I don't collect these. It is. Did you do it? Okay. I got your grade. That's fine. Huh? So did you do it? All right. You got a grade on it then. Any other questions on 41 or 42?
Would you divide by 11?
Well, here they make a straight line, yes? So they would add together to be,
180.
yes.
So you would do these.
So you would, but these do, they have the same variable.
No.
So we would do 3y plus 11 plus 10y is equal to,
180.
yes.
Can I go?
Nope, we're finishing this. Jordan, sit. We're finishing this. We're finishing this. So, are there any, guys, are there any other questions on 41 or 42? So, that leaves really just the proof. So the only thing we have left, yes? Out of all the proofs, are there any one of those that y'all want to look at before we finish this up? Mm-hmm. 32. 42? 34. Angles 1 and 2 are supplementary. Angles 2 and 3 are supplementary. Prove that 1 is congruent to 3. Well, what is the first thing we always have? We start with the, so angle 1 and angle 2 are and angle 2 and now these don't have to be on the same line, because I think on the test I gave you multiple lines for the given. So for here, 1 and 2 would both be the given. Now we say on the next one that angle 1, measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is 180.
Transitive.
We'll have you make it up in Champ. We'll have you make it up in Champ. So we have that. Now the next part says that we're using the transitive property. Well, transitive property is taking two statements and making a new one. Measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2. Yes. Well, we have the same thing on both sides, yes? And we took it away, so that's our subtraction. Because we're trying to get angle 1 equal to angle 3. The measure of angle 1 equal to the measure of angle 3. Since they shared that same measure of angle 2, since it's just a number we can subtract it from both sides, telling us measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 3. Which brings us to the last line, yes?
The measure of angle 1, the squiggly equal, and then
Now, again, if you put M, the little measure before it, I'm going to mark it wrong.
what does that squiggle mean?
Congruent. Partially because we're talking about the angles being congruent, and also I gave you what's going to be on the last line. Any other questions on this here? So are we good with everything on the review sheet? So guys, hold up. We can look at 43 next. Guys, the test is in two parts. There's two parts. Part 1, which is tomorrow, is going to be everything on this review sheet except the proofs. Everything except for the proofs is part 1. Part 2 is just the proofs. Yes, you're allowed to use this on both parts, yes. The test, yeah, no, you hold on to it. The test, part 1 is 90%. The proofs. Well, part 1's 90, 200 total. So you're wanting to look at this one here. So guys, let's keep the volume down because we're going to work on this here. So, given angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, and 1 and 2 are supplementary. Yeah, so angle 1 and angle 2 are both right angles. So what are we wanting to prove? Angle 1 and angle 2 are both right angles. Because what we're wanting to prove is always on the last line of our first column. Okay, so they gave us angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, and 1 and 2 are supplementary. Now, the first thing they tell us on line 2 is measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 2. Well, that's a definition of congruent angles, because if two angles are congruent, it means their measures are the same. So 3, measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is equal to 180. Well, this is the definition of supplementary angles. So really, I just used the definitions to take what was given and rewrite them out. It will combine to 1. So number 4, so we took, because we have 1 plus 2 equals 180. Well, we said 1 is equal to 2. So now we have 1 plus 1 is equal to 180. Yes. Substitution, property of quality. Because if we're just plugging in one value in, it's substitution. If we're taking two statements and making a new one, it's transitive. Well, I'm going to say simplify, or we could say distributive property. Is it simplified or distributed property? Either one works.
They're both the same.
Yeah, I will take them as the same. I mean, the book would want distributive. I will take simplify. Now we're going from 2 times the measure of angle 1 equals 180 to the measure of angle 1 equals 90. This is our division property of equality.
I feel like it would be so much easier if we just solved that from top to bottom.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be so much easier.
And the last one's going to be transitive because we're taking, yeah.
Oh, it isn't? Oh, well.
I did it.
No, there is no A. This TRANSI, this is supposed to be an I. Yeah, ITIVE. Because it's going to be transitive because we're taking, guys, we're taking this statement and the fact that 1 is congruent to 2 or 1 is equal to 2. And that's it.